Hey everybody, it's Zen or Dale Watson again. Wanting to give you another tutorial. You guys have been asking for them, so here comes another one. In this, I'm going to do really quick a ranged spell. And then in the next tutorial, I'll do a melee ability or skill. So a few things that I am not going to show in this is blend space setup or animation blueprint. Basically, a custom character, you need to make a new animation blueprint and you cut and paste, copy and paste all the code from your RPG system APB. So this character example here, if you go into that and you'll see you need to copy and paste everything from the event graph here. Take all this, put it onto your own, okay? But of course, before you do that, you need to implement the animation interface. Animation interface before copy and paste, okay? And so, and then add all the variables, all that stuff, very similar to the enemy one that we already did. And then you need to take this player hit reaction stuff and have all your hit reactions. Again, this is stuff we're going to go over a different time. Okay. Also, retargeting your mannequin and all that stuff. Good old Angry Penguin Studio put a great IK retargeting video up for everybody. Check that out. Retarget your mesh. I'm using a custom mesh. This is Enhance from the marketplace. So there is going to be some paid assets in this one. I'm trying to do as much free assets as possible, but just to do custom meshes and everything like you guys want, I need to do that. Okay. So with that all being said, let's get into the skill creation. Okay. First steps, DT skill. Your data table skill and skill tree. So you can actually open both of those to save some time. Everything in this system is data driven. So data tables are going to be huge, even for questing, dialogue, your drop system, everything is in data tables. All right. So that's where everything starts. Get used to your data tables. So we're going to do a good old fireball spell, RPG, right? Good old role-playing game. We need a fireball. So we're going to add a new row, and you're going to double-click on new row. What that's going to do is we're going to name it. We need to give it a spell or skill ID. So that's going to be SP for spell for me. That's my naming convention. And then fireball. Use whatever you wish. I like to have spell SP for spells, PA or physical attacks for physical attacks. And then this is the tooltip name. So fireball. And this is, you can have spaces, all sorts of stuff. So if you want to say vicious fireball, you can, whatever. And then how many levels? Only one level. You can have 4, 10, whatever, with different size fireballs, all that type of stuff. That's more advanced things we'll show later. I'm just going to do one for now. Damage type, magical. This is a ranged attack, and we're going to use fire here. Now, this means that someone that has fire defense or elemental fire defense, if you create an enemy, they can resist this spell. Spell power, consume, 50. Now, all of these settings here are in the documentation that you can find under frequently asked questions. That takes you to the Google Drive where all of these have really good descriptions. So I'm not going to spend time explaining them to you. If there are some that give you trouble, just ask us in Discord and we'll help you. But they're pretty well explained in there. Now, just so that we can really well see the damage, I'm going to put the damage at like 500 so it will take like half the life of our dragon that we were using. Damage percent, again, I'm not going to explain all of these. So not going to do damage. It's not fixed. I'm not going to do multi-hit. I do want it to crit. And I want crit to have a 20% bonus. It is a projectile. Its speed, I'm going to put 2,500. And these are all customizable by you. If you're following along, just realize I'm just putting in things that have worked for me in the past. Lifetime, 15 seconds max, and traveling a distance of 5,000. These are things I like for my games. I've always played casters, so I have some preferences here. Do whatever works for you. Add range. I don't need any of these. Attach, just so you know, attach is when it attaches to the character's body, your character. So if you have something spinning around you that damages enemies, you would want attach. In this case, it's a fireball leaving me. I don't want it to attach. Instant execute. You don't need to use your right mouse button to confirm an execution here. So I do want that. I just want to press a button and it instant executes. Impulse has to do with how far the ragdoll, when it dies, will fly. Async AoE, if you have anything where you have multiple hits, you want AoE. And then you want to select how many is your max, if there is a max that you want. Skill type, this is a good one to go over. Hold and release is like a drain life that you have to hold the key. Toggle is you press it, it activates, and it will keep going until you press the key again. Default is normal, where you press the skill and then it fires. Now, trace type, as far as I understand, this is for your projectile, as well as so that you can select targets. The system behind the projectile, if you're in a third-person game, it will look for a target in front of you and home in on it. Whereas if you're in top-down, it will go where your mouse is pointing, the enemy that your mouse is pointing. So I like to go up here to the magical one, look at the box trace settings for this, and somewhat copy those. And you just have to adjust them based upon your own needs. So I'm going to go box here. Let's see, that was 30 and 125. So 30 is the minimum distance. So if you put that at 0, you could have a collision on your own mesh. 30 means that that's where it will start looking for enemies. And then going out 125. Width, I like 75. And then minimum angle, I'm going to put 100 on this. It is not passive, a bonus, a buff, or status effect. But those things we will talk about in another video, where we'll add probably like a burn onto the fireball, so that when the fireball hits, it will add a dot or something like that. But right now we're keeping it basic. It is a cast. We're going to do a 1 second cast. We do not want to hide the casting bar. Interrupt when cast, or interrupt cast when hit. Just so you know, that's a full interrupt. So if they hit you, and you can adjust the code on this, obviously, but when you get hit, it doesn't like slow down your cast or whatever. It completely stops your cast. So that can be very disruptive with melee enemies, just so you know. Can walk while cast. We don't want that. Cancel cast on walk and stop movement. I like stop movement until I decide I don't want it. You can keep that off for like a skill gap, if you want people to have to stop to cast, I like an the after attack delay is like a global cooldown. I'd like a half second on there. Same with my after attack walk delay, or else your animations, you might be doing like a swing of something and you're able to move forward, and it doesn't make sense with like root motion or something like that. So adjust these as you need. That's an after your attack you walk. Cooldown, we'll do a 1 second cooldown on the attack. I skipped these 4 for right now. We aren't going to mess with any attack speed modifiers. Overheat is if you want charges like, hey, 3 ice lances that reset at a specific order, or in the order that they were used, instead of just all resetting as they're used, that type of stuff. Overheat we'll talk about probably later on. And then again, required item, like if we wanted it to only activate if you have a shield or a wand, or an item consume, like if you wanted them to have idols or some sort of dust or something to be able to do a blessing, or whatever. Those things you can add in, okay? This is all custom code stuff. Like if you want a self-heal upon execute, or the event stuff, I'm going to try and get Hyperius T to do, maybe give us some more ideas of some interesting event inputs that we can put in here, some codes. And then if you ever have anything in here, like you're putting a status effect on, or you do have attack bonuses, you need to click attack bonuses. And then skill module, you're usually going to have a skill module. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go ahead and create that now. So you'll come in here and you will go to skill module base. And you're going to have 2 in here. So most of your skill modules will be the base, and then we have a projectile. So we're going to use the projectile one and create a child blueprint class. BP _ fireball. And I am going to move this down just so I can keep track of it. Third person game. So now we have our skill module. That's what this is. And you might have to add this particle system or a Niagara system, and you'll want to add it to that base that we had. You'll add it to the base. And then it will be on here. I'm going to go ahead. So in our viewport, we want to go to our particle system and add whatever particle system you want. I'm going to use this fireball base. And this is from that free pack. Compile, save. And then class defaults. We need to change down here our skill ID. So our skill ID, remember SP _ fireball. So that is going to make it where all of our information from skill in here is transferred to our projectile. Now, in our skill, now we can go down here at the bottom to skill module class and add our BP fireball that we just created. I don't have any icons in here, so I'm just going to pick something. So that's our fireball one right now. And then it's not a basic attack or anything. And if you wanted to have a custom description, consume your enemies in fire, something like that. I know that's lame. Leave me alone. So biggest thing, class defaults, make sure that correct skill ID is in there. And then last thing is our skill tree. Add it to novice, where you're going to add an array, and then we put in here our skill ID of SP fireball. Learn instantly. And then row 4, column 1. Skill cost 0, all those things, so that it will just show up and we can just drag it on. So we have our skill, we have our skill module. So now the skill will work if we come in here, go to our fireball, and we press 1, it will cast and it will go. And if you actually aim it at this guy, it will, there, it hit him. Boom. And it should die here. Boom. Nice. So the skill is working. As you notice, we don't have any animations. So that's where we come into our animation blueprint that we created. Now, remembering that we're going to have our blueprint. Okay, our third person character, all that you have to do, because this is the one that comes with the RPG pack. All I did was come in here and change out the mesh and add in my custom blueprint, animation blueprint. That's the only things I have changed in this entire thing. Now, you always have to ask yourself a question if you have a custom character, you have to decide whether it's easier to copy paste all of this onto it, all of this stuff onto it, and all of the functions, including all of the needed and implemented interfaces, or if it's easier to just throw your custom code onto this one, which I typically do that. Like the easy building system, I've added that to this. You just throw code onto the character provided. That's usually the easier way. So here I just replaced the mesh. And so that's how we have our animation blueprint with our mesh guy in here. So again, on the left-hand side in our event graph, and keeping in mind, we do have our state machine and everything created very almost identical to how we did the enemy. Okay, so just go back and watch that if you need basic stuff, and we'll do something more complicated later. So in our animation blueprint, on the left-hand side is all of your animations for skills. Now, I've added, so you add a pin, and I've added 2 here for demonstrations. So I'll actually delete those. You can come on here, add a pin, it'll add a case. So you want to make sure you click on it if it doesn't show it up here. And then you put in the same thing that we did. SP fire ball, and I can't type. Okay. And you need to have the state right here. State, animation state. So I like to double click on the green here and just drag it down. You can do this however you would like. It's just how I do. And then you need to copy and paste a switch, bring down your fireball, and then bring your animation state. And because it's a fireball, we are going to use casting. And if you come off here, because in here, a lot of them are just using montages. So check this out, put in a montage. And because my character comes with a bunch of animations, I can just use these. All right. If you got to use Mixamo or whatever, you have to figure out your own animation situation. I'm just helping with RPG system here. But so I have some spell casting, and I'm just going to use a very simple one that I'm just going to use the ones that came with my character. And there's a casting spell that I'm going to use. And then you right click on it and then create anim montage. So I'll create the anim montage, and I'll just call this casting. You're going to have to figure out your own naming situations on that. But then I can take that casting, and if I go back into my animation blueprint, so now I have casting. And there's also in Playwright, if you're using, attack speed and all that, you need to bring in this playtime as well. Okay. So now we have our montage in here. Let's see what happens. I think it's not gonna work out perfectly here, right? So it's off, right? But we're getting closer. So we need to do some stuff to make those line up. Now there's many ways you can accomplish this. I'm just going to give you some ideas, and we'll kind of go from there. All right. So in this case, I'm going to take my casting montage. Let me bring it over here. And I'm going to create, if you haven't seen this done before, you can change sections. You can create sections. So I'm going to say this is kind of my casting section. So I can do a new montage section, and I'm going to say casting. And then I'm going to need another one I'm going to call it fire, meaning that's when the spell fires off. You want to drag those really close, and you might have to zoom in to get close, even closer. Okay. So over here with casting, this arrow, you want to go to casting. So it makes it loop. Now watch what happens. So, and I have to press play down here. So it actually holds it where I set that casting line at. And then when I press the other one, that's when fire goes through. So as you can see, that's the end. So the idea is that your guy comes to a casting point, right? He sits there and holds it, maybe is charging some fire, and then boom, he throws it. Because we need a little bit of a pause. So now we got those sections. And then I also like to throw in somewhere in here where, in case I need a montage notify somewhere in here to let me know when to turn some particles off. If we're having some charging fire in his hands or something like that. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to close my third person character. Again, just switch out the mesh and all that. Put in your own animation blueprint. But here, so we can't really adjust those, use those sections with this node. So we want to actually go to play montage, this top one. And we'll go ahead and delete this. But now it's going to ask for a skeletal component, which you want to get player skeletal mesh from our visual equipment system. And that will allow you to attach a component there. And we're going to put that on our casting side. And target is simply our get player character. And that can become useful as well. So with that, and we don't have to put a starting section in here because it assumes you're starting at that first one. And so let's see what happens here. So now we attach our spell. Press 1. Because we didn't put in a montage like a dummy. My bad. Okay. So now, see how it holds, but just in that casting position. So now, off of execution, we basically want to do the same thing, right? Copy, paste. So on execution, the same skeletal component, we're going to use casting, but now remember, we called that last section fire. And so now upon execution, we should have something a little bit closer. So now we're getting somewhere. And I think that probably needs to go a little faster. So sometimes you can't always use the playtime here. You might have to adjust, and there's a lot of blending that has to go on here. So this is getting to the rough point, all right? Or else this will take forever to go through how to create a skill, all right? You have to finesse this stuff, but I'm trying to show you, the basics here. So here, that's much, I maybe a little too, I don't know, maybe a little too fast. And then now maybe some particle effects. I'm using Niagara, so that's a system. So spawn system, and we'll have it attached to like the hands, like he charging some fire up there, So let's go. So I have some portal, at least that will kind of look like a charging. And I'm So just bear with me. I don't have perfect things here, but I'm trying to show you basically how to get started. Okay. So if I want to have some particles start up, you can actually look at your skeleton, right? And in my case, I like to use here, I'm going to hide the bones. I like to use my weapon sockets because they're right perfectly on the hands. But you can add sockets. Like you can, here I put in a casting socket. It's back, it's angled incorrectly. So I'd have to do some work on how it should be angled. But I'm going to use this weapon R socket. So here we can close this. We can close our skill tree. So I'm going to put here attach point name. Okay. And we're going to go weapon underscore R socket. And then the component here obviously is our skeletal mesh. And I'm going to drop this down. So we should have, and then we want to snap, target, keep world scale. And let's see what happens. Again, I'm trying to get you to a starting point here, trying to give you some ideas of where to start. So press, so now we have and it doesn't end. So now it will just keep repeating itself. So let's change. So we need to deactivate that. Oh, now remember we put a notify on there. And if you look at that notify on casting, so notice it falls here on the fire side. Because if we preview the first on the loop side, there is no montage in here. Where on the second side, there is a montage notify. So off of here, I believe we could go is valid always. And then we'll go deactivate. And then let's promote this to a variable. Spell particle. Okay. So at least now we have a reference to it here, and then we'll deactivate that on our montage notify. Oh, well, if it exists. Okay. And so, and I want to slow this down at 1.2. Just that 1.5 is a little fast. So let's see where we're at now. Come in here. Press 1. There we go. So now we're cutting out that particle, responding some particle. And like I said, it's a portal particle. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. And then something I wanted to show you, because this can happen, and I think it's just an Unreal thing. So if you aren't careful, and so if I just jam it, I wonder if I can get one to. Sometimes you can get those particles to. Actually, this is doing really good. So, but you can also put the is valid and deactivate on the casting as well, just in case you start getting ones that won't go away. You can have it check on the start of casting as well. But there you go. You have a nice little fire spell. Do you come up, start casting, and again, you want to aim directly at them in front of you. Boom, dead monster. We have a spell skill. If you have any questions, let me know. And next, I'll release one with a melee skill. It's going to be very similar, but I'll also throw in there making a weapon, making an item, that type of stuff to add to it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.